Dope, 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 let's get it. I'm a trapping fanatic, that shit automatic, so I cannot turn it on or off. Bitches all on my dick, then she hop on my dick, I'm like, why you keep hopping on and off? Yo, bitch all on my dick, she be doing the most. I tell her, little bitch, she so extra. And my gun up on me, but not run up on me. Niggas, they wanna fight, they some wrestlers.
After this attack, the school is closed for just a couple of days until it reopens. During these days, at the home of Izuku, he talks to his grandfather about the incident and what he saw. He talked for hours, knowing that the villain he saw was a clone of him, of some sort. He didn't really get to see his face, but he assumed they could be quite similar in looks. Gran Torino could see the worry on his grandson's face, so he hit him on the head with his cane. Remember these words, Izuku. There can only ever be one you. He then points his cane to Izuku's heart and smiles. This is what makes you different from that clone. This causes Izuku to smile and thank his grandpa. Akamaru jumps on Izuku and starts to lick his face. Yeah, I know, Akamaru. There is really only one me. However, it's still concerning. When Izuku then returns to school, he's called into the office of All Might. Don't worry about the villain that attacked, as Sir Night-Eye is on investigation for it. Izuku nods and heads to class where he's told about the sports festival by Tokuyami since he missed the announcement by his homeroom teacher. The day would go on as normal until lunch. When the doors are opened, Class B is standing there. Izuku uses his transformation jutsu to get by as Aizawa and heads back to the office of All Might. Mirio was already there, which was perfect. Can you help me develop this jutsu, Mirio? The older student smiles, looking at Izuku, saying he'd be happy to help. Izuku bows, thanking him, because he wants to use it in the sports festival. He leaves the room and goes to lunch, while the two would continue to talk. Mirio, what do you think of him? All Might then states, you will most likely become the next number 1, and I believe he's the closest thing we have to becoming the number 2 hero. Or he could even become your sidekick. Mirio looks down at his hand, closing his eyes. He's the strongest in his class. But he still works hard, just like everyone else. And he's pretty hard on himself. But I guess that's just due to his upbringing, since you've told me about it. And now, he knows that he's been replaced. I believe he feels as if he needs to prove himself, that he was always the better option. I think he'll be a fine hero. All Might would agree, and as it comes to the afternoon, they meet up for the first day of training, with Sir Night-Eye being there as well as Gran Torino. Izuku asked Mirio to show off One for All, and he did. Izuku looked at it and nodded. This form isn't as strong as One for All. Hell, it isn't even close. But it could be used during a sports festival. Izuku shows it off, leaving everyone there in shock, but he falls to one knee shortly after. Mirio helps him up, saying that they've got some work to do, as we skip past these short days of training to the sports festival, where Mirio, Sir Night-Eye, and Gran Torino sit in attendance to watch Izuku. Class 1A is seen in their waiting room, wondering when they were going out. Izuku sat talking to Jiro and Kaminari when he was approached by Todoroki. All Might was the final hero who sponsored you, wasn't he? Izuku nods as this shocks everyone. Alright then, I have to be the one to defeat you. Kaminari stands, telling Todoroki to calm down, but Izuku stands up for himself. I don't want to lose to anyone until I show the world what I can do. I have to keep winning in order to become a good hero and save a lot of people. The students of Class 1A are called out, and Bakugo gives the same speech as in canon. All the other classes begin to turn on their class, seeing them as the main target. Midnight then reveals the first event to be an obstacle course. Izuku looks forward, wondering what will be on the inside. More importantly, what abilities should he show off? The gates open and many rush forward, with Izuku being up there due to his base speed. The 0-point bots appear and Izuku looks up. Whoa, That's pretty cool. Before Todoroki can even freeze one of them, a green blur goes right by him and Bakugo. Forming the staff, Izuku cuts through 6 0-point bots and they crash down on the other contestants. This angers Bakugo and Todoroki, who race after him. Izuku then stands at the large gap, wondering how he would get over it. He thinks about flying over, but maybe he should save that ability for later. Instead, he creates hundreds of clones that make a bridge for him to run straight across on. Todoroki and Bakugo were already catching up to him. Out of my way, you nerds. Bakugo then goes forward towards the landmines, but some would explode on his face. Izuku then runs behind Todoroki, who was using ice to slide across the mines. Todoroki would come in first, with Bakugo coming in second, and Izuku in third. The only reason that Bakugo beat him was due to him stopping. Right after he crosses the line, Bakugo grabs him by the collar. "Why did you stop running?" Izuku shrugs, saying he must have gotten tired. Bakugo isn't buying this for even 1 second, and begins preparing an attack, but is stopped by midnight. Todoroki himself is wondering why Izuku only ran behind him, as he could have passed him. Once everyone else arrives, the second event is revealed, as it's a cavalry battle. Since Izuku doesn't have the 1 million point bounty, it's easier for him to create a team. Here, his team consisted of Tokiyami, Uraraka, Ida, and himself. Ida helps make their strategy, which would be to evade and attack. Ida and Uraraka will act as the movement for the group, with Tokiyami and Izuku being the offensive pieces to the puzzle. Izuku thinks about it and walks over to Midnight, asking her a question. She nods and smiles, saying that's fine. Everyone then gets in their starting positions, and it begins. Most people head right for Todoroki and his team since he has the most points. This gives Izuku's squad an advantage. As some of them rush towards Todoroki, Izuku flew by them, grabbing their headbands. He then returns to his group with a bunch of them, shocking them that he has a flying quirk. Even his teachers, except for All Might and Gran Torino, had no idea. Gran Torino, in the stands, scoffs, causing Mirio to question this. Aren't you happy Izuku's doing really good? You and me both know that he's holding back. Sir Night-Eye then pushes his glasses up further, saying Izuku doesn't want to show off his real strength because he believes the villains are watching this event as well. Izuku lands on the hands of his teammates and looks around. He then noticed that everyone was staring at him and then began rushing in towards him. Ida would quickly ask him what headbands he grabbed, and Izuku looks down, seeing the 1 million point headband there as well, as this would shock him as he doesn't remember grabbing it. Well, we have to make a plan quick. Izuku looks around at each of his team, noticing they have no openings to get through. Tokiyami, right. Izuku places his hands together, and his eyes would change pattern, with them beginning to bleed. A half-body, four-armed Susanoo, green in color, forms around the team, causing everyone to stop. What is that? Bakugo rushes in using a large explosion, but a green shield would form, blocking the attack. 2 blades then form in the other hands, and they are swung down. This causes the pros to intervene, but even they couldn't stop the attack, and everyone is sent flying. Izuku sees this and releases the Susanoo with his own team, not even knowing what to say. The stadium was so silent until Gran Torino stood up shouting, "You idiot, what did I tell you about using that ability?" "But Gramps, it was an emergency." "That's too damn bad. You should have thought of something else." He sits back down, folding his arms, and Izuku sighs. The people in the stands then ask the pro hero if he knows the kid who just won the cavalry battle. And Gran Torino says that's his grandson. All the people are in shock as they praise the boy for his mastery over multiple quirks, and after the heroes make sure everyone is okay, the sports festival goes on with the next event. This will be the tournament for first place. The matches are revealed as Izuku sees his name next to someone named Shinso. Ojiro would walk over, telling Izuku to be careful, as he has some sort of strange ability that controls the mind. Thanks for the heads up. Ojiro wishes Izuku luck as he walks off to his waiting room. Izuku walks out for his first match, with the fans roaring in the stands. He steps up to face Shinso and bows to him. Izuku looks forward at Shinso, who begins to use his quirk, but it has no effect. Shinso didn't know what to do, as he now rushed, throwing a punch. Izuku avoided it and activated the Byakugan. He closed off all of Shinso's chakra points, leaving his arms useless in this battle. Then, he pushed him out of the arena. It was a short battle, but an overall win for Izuku regardless. The second round match that he would have would be against Todoroki. Izuku leaves his own waiting room and runs into Endeavor. He bows to the number 2 hero and asked him what it's like to be a hero from his perspective. Endeavor humors his question by giving Izuku some solid advice and even compliments him on his mastery of some of his quirks. The number 2 hero then walks off, telling Izuku that he's not going to win. Izuku would enter the arena where Todoroki was waiting. I'm going to win this tournament and become the next number 1 hero. Izuku would only nod to Todoroki's statement and summons his staff. His main quirk is ice, but using the Byakugan, I can see there's another power dormant in his body. If he is the son of Endeavor, it's possible he could have another quirk, which was based on fire, but it would also make perfect sense for him to have one. Should I end this battle fast, or should I let this one build up? Izuku dodges the ice sent his way, flipping into the air, and makes eye contact with Todoroki. You can't hide in the sky. Todoroki lifts his arm, causing a mountain of ice to head towards his opponent. Izuku vanished from that spot and punched Todoroki in the side, sending him flying. No one even knew he could move this fast besides Gran Torino and All Might. Todoroki is almost sent out of the arena, but is able to stop himself with his ice quirk. What was that? I've watched him fight a couple of times now, but I've never seen anyone, especially him, have a speed like that. As this thought finished, Izuku appeared right behind Todoroki. He could barely see him coming and narrowly avoids a fatal blow to the ribs by blocking it with his arm. It still pushes him to the other side of the arena, and Izuku stands straight back up, looking at his hand, and then closes it to a fist. Good, it worked. I wonder how long my body can keep up though. Izuku would look back at Todoroki, who was in complete shock. He didn't know if he could attack, or if his ice would even be able to reach him, especially at that speed. Izuku would then step forward, seeing the buildup of his second quirk inside of him, as he prepared himself for the flames. Todoroki then stopped himself, saying he doesn't need to borrow the power of his old man. Izuku then asked him why he stopped. I don't need his power to win. Oh, okay. Well, what if using both your powers in the future as a pro could help more people? Would you utilize them then? Izuku activates the 3 Tomoe Sharingan, placing Todoroki in a genjutsu like no other. He saw his future as a pro, with his flames and his ice working together. This quirk was his own. Both of them were. Even if they were gifted to him by a terrible past, they're still his own, and he can choose how he wants to use them. Todoroki was seen with his head down, and some tears would drop onto the floor of the arena. He would lift his head, now with determination in his eyes. Flames exploded from one side of the arena, and ice did from the other. Endeavor became so excited that he ran down to get a closer look. Good work, Shoto. Now end this battle with my power. Your power. If I'm not mistaken, both of these quirks were always mine for the taking, and now I finally see that. Todoroki vanished and used his ice to skate behind Izuku. He then used both his flames and ice, but the attack is blocked by a chakra staff. That's more like it. But I want this fight. Well, I want to make sure we get a lot of attention from this fight, from all the pros. Are you in? Todoroki would nod as each of them jumps to a side of the arena. Todoroki's flames and ice were building up, and Izuku lowered his stance and closed his fist. Well, I guess it's now or never to go all out. Gates open. After shouting this, his chakra becomes visible to the world. He gains a green aura around his body and dashes at Todoroki. The flames and ice make it hard for Izuku to get close, so he's forced to evade them and destroy the ice. This caused the crowd to go crazy while watching, with many standing out of their seats to cheer. The battle seems to be closing as each fighter channels their energy into a final attack. The flames and ice rush forward with Izuku jumping towards them, pulling his fist back. Multiple pro heroes have to jump into action to make sure the kids don't kill each other. Todoroki was then seen being overwhelmed, but then he saw Izuku standing in front of him. His chakra staff expanded to block the damage, but he would also send Todoroki flying into the back wall. He then poofs in the smoke, revealing he was a clone, and the dust settles to see the arena completely destroyed. Izuku was still in it though, and was seen standing in the center of it, with his shirt torn to shreds, but his fists raised to the sky, like All Might. Cheers once again erupt from the silence as President Mike declares Izuku the winner of this match. The matches for the second round remain the same, leading into the semifinals, with the first match being Izuku versus Ida. Ida already knows that his speed won't be his best weapon in this fight. It'll be his brain. The match begins and Izuku rushes forward towards Ida. His opponent dashed away to dodge, but Izuku was right behind him. He lands a powerful strike to his ribcage, knocking the wind out of Ida. Izuku then jumps in the air and performs hand signs. A giant ball of fire is seen heading down towards the entire stadium. Ida has nowhere to run, and he has nothing that he can do. So he's hit by these flames and scorch marks are left on his entire body. Izuku is then declared the winner because Ida isn't able to keep going, but he walks over to Ida. He was already knocked out, so instead, he just heals him, and he would wake up. Now he would go into the waiting room to wait for his final opponent. Soon, it was announced to be Bakugo. Each fighter sat in their rooms with one thing on their mind: victory. Izuku walked out with his head held high, and he wondered if he should go all out here. No, I want to win with my skills, not just my abilities. I'm going to show everyone watching I'm the best hand-to-hand fighter in the freshman class. Izuku activated the Byakugan in one eye and the 3 Tomoe Sharingan in the other. He gets in a Hyuga-like stance and puts one hand forward. Bakugo blasted towards him, but Izuku dodged, striking him in the leg. Bakugo then turns, not letting him phase him, and swings his other leg. Izuku blocks the strike and then hits him in the chest, sending him back. Stop pitying me and go all out like you did against Todoroki. That's an ability I've only been able to use once a day. Bakugo tells him that he doesn't care and rushes back in. This time, he uses an explosion to propel himself over Izuku and then held, his hands to the back of his head. Got you. Bakugo lets out another huge explosion, but Izuku uses a 360 palm rotation to deflect it back onto his opponent. What the hell was that? Izuku then stops spinning and looks down at Bakugo. He punches the air, sending an air palm that knocks him out of the ring. Izuku is the winner of the sports festival, and he did so without even being touched. Awards are presented by the #1 hero, and news reporters soon flocked towards many of the students, giving them interviews. A woman would ask Izuku about his fight with Todoroki and the quirk that he used during it. He explains it's something he created while watching film of All Might to pay respects to the #1 hero. Izuku then heads off to Ida, asking about his brother. Ida tells his friend not to worry, but Izuku scoffs. I can heal him, better than any doctor or hero. This shocks Ida, as the two would head to the hospital where his brother was in critical condition from the hero killer. Izuku walks in, performing hand signs and placing his hands on Ida's brother. A green light appears around the patient, and Izuku sat there for minutes, until his eyes open once again. I've repaired the scars on his body and his bones. Now, he just needs to rest for a couple of weeks. Izuku then leaves the room after being thanked by the parents of the brothers and then heads home. The next day at school, they are told about their internships, and Aizawa shows the class who has the most. Izuku and Todoroki seem to have a lot, and so does Bakugo, which isn't surprising at all. Izuku had already chosen the hero association he wished to go with. He just needs to come up with the hero name. Midnight would walk in the room to help out with it, and he ends up with the Sage of Six Paths, or just Sage for short. Midnight likes the name, but she questions the Six Paths part. Izuku then creates 5 other clones in the room, as each of them shows off an element where his abilities stem from. She nods, saying he's creative. And later that day, Izuku heads to the office of All Might to discuss his internship at an agency. All Might gives him some recommendations, but Izuku had already made up his mind. Days later, we just see him returning home and walking in. Gran Torino hits him on the head for choosing him instead of another active pro hero. Izuku states he doesn't need to train physically. He wants to prepare his mind for the worst to come when he has to face his counterpart that was created. Izuku does this genjutsu or mental training for days until Gran Torino forces him to get out of the house. They would go on a patrol, and this is when the city was attacked. Izuku sees a Nomu and rushes in tackling it before it could crash into a train cart. Izuku doesn't hesitate and holds his hands over the creature. His eyes change to their Mangekyo form, and he burns it to nothing but ash with his black flames. Izuku gets back up and looks around the city, seeing people in trouble. He would dash to another part of the city, and Endeavor watched as the Nomu grabbed a woman and began to fly off, but it was kicked to the ground and burned by Izuku. "Hey Endeavor, I know where the hero killer is. You mind heading that way? I'll take care of things here." Endeavor nods to the young hero, and Shoto follows his father after getting the instructions from Izuku. Izuku looks at the area and creates hundreds of clones that do every job possible. Shigaraki stood far away, watching all of this unfold and also cursing Izuku. "Say it to my face then." Before Shigaraki could fully turn around, hearing this voice, he was sent flying by the real Izuku. He lands in the street with minor injuries and looks towards his opponent. "I'm not ready to fight you just yet. I didn't ask you that. Since my father created you as a replacement, I'll make sure you get the rest that you deserve." Shigaraki slams his hands to the ground, destroying everything. But Izuku walks right through it and punches Shigaraki in the face. And he kicks him in the stomach. "You're just a cheap copy. Why not rebel like I did?" Shigaraki is almost teleported away until black flames enter the villain, causing him to flee without Shigaraki. Izuku continuously beats up Shigaraki until he gets up. Being a pawn for All for One and Kaguya isn't a good life at all. But there's only one way to free you. I'll have to kill them both. Shigaraki begins laughing. "Be careful there, hero. Your dad's side is beginning to show." Izuku turns around, using the vanishing Rasengan, but Shigaraki had already been teleported away. Izuku returns to the main parts of the city to see that the hero killer had been captured, but he still makes his declaration, which would lead to many villains now seeking out Shigaraki, who is recovering from his battle with Izuku. The internships only last a couple more days before the students return to UA for their final exams. Here, the ones to face against All Might were Todoroki and Izuku. The two head into the fake city, running right towards the exit. All Might then confronts them and slams a fist into each of them. They vanish into smoke, as it's revealed these two were just clones, and the real ones were hiding on the top floor of a destroyed building. We won't have much time before he finds us, so what's the plan? Do you want to capture him, Todoroki? Well, it's possible, but that would be a hard job to accomplish. Do you have any jutsu that would work well against him? Izuku's eyes then widen. I have one that could work, but we need to get him to follow us to that darker building on that side of the town. Izuku nods, and Todoroki would do so as well. Leave that to me then. The two would split up, with Izuku sending multiple clones to help out Shigaraki. All Might attacks the group, but Todoroki uses his ice to escape. Very creative, young hero, but it won't be enough to get away from me. Todoroki has to continuously dodge attacks from All Might. The number one hero then finally lands a strike that sends Todoroki through multiple buildings. He confronts his student, saying that he doesn't pass, but Todoroki smirks. All Might is then frozen in position. He has enough strength to turn his head, as he sees the glowing red eyes of Izuku all around the room. Well, what a surprise. You two pass. Izuku releases the Shadow Possession Jutsu and walks to Todoroki. Nice work leading him here. Well, we won thanks to your plan. The two then walk from the building talking, with All Might staring on. It feels like just yesterday. He was an abandoned boy in an alleyway. But now he's en route to become one of the best heroes Japan has ever seen.